Welcome back. This is Kind Regards, the show, episode 4. And I want to talk a little bit about homeless people for a minute. And I suppose my relationship to homeless people. And I have a feeling that this one will be relatively relatable. In small towns in Australia, I don't know how it is in the rest of the world. We're lucky enough that we don't have heaps and heaps of sort of homeless people, you know. But when you come to the city, it's pretty different. It's pretty different, and it's quite alarming. And I suppose what happens, this is the general trend of what happens, I see a homeless person, I immediately feel bad, and then my thoughts start racing. You know, I'm usually walking. Thoughts start racing, you know, oh, that's so terrible. You know, oh, I wonder how they got there. I wonder, you know, what they would do if I gave them money. I wonder if they're, you know, I guess nice, or if they're like nasty or something. Like I don't stand by these thoughts. This is just roughly what sort of pops into my head, some sort of variation of all that stuff. And then by the time I'm done with like 4 of those quick fire thoughts, I've walked past them. I wait until my thoughts go to something else, because, you know, in the city there's a million things jumping out at you. You go, oh, that tandoori restaurant, I wonder if that's highly rated or whatever. And then I try not to think about the homeless person again. And that continues until I see another homeless person, and the whole thing starts again. It doesn't make me feel good. And I suppose I wonder about the ethics of the whole thing. The classic thing that, you know, maybe you believe this and maybe it deserves more credit than I'm giving it, but is, you know, oh, I won't give them money, I'll buy them something. But I don't believe in this. I think that's making a decision for a person that is theirs to make. It's not my job to decide how someone else uses their resources, and to assume that I would use them better than they would, I think it puts me in a vertical relationship with them. It means that I'm deciding that I have better judgment, and that with that better judgment, I'm going to make a better decision. So I'm going to buy someone a sandwich instead of letting them buy cigarettes with the money. Because sandwich good, cigarettes bad. I'm kind of getting this from like Adlerian psychology, where he sort of says, at least in the version of Adlerian psychology that I've read, which is The Courage to be Disliked, that we should be in horizontal relationships with people. We should be equals with people. We should think of other people as our equals. And that if we don't, it's a hierarchical relationship. That's the other kind, of vertical relationship, where I know something that you don't know, and I have power over you. You know, student-teacher is like this, you know, parent-child is like this, and so on and so forth. And it results in other people doing other people's jobs, right? If the teacher thinks that they are the almighty teacher and these mere students, blah, 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 then the teacher is going to step in on the students' autonomy and make them make decisions, or make them tread a certain path in order to get where the teacher wants them to go. Because why wouldn't they? Because the teacher knows best. So listen up, you know. But in Adlerian psychology, it says, no, even if you are a student and a teacher, the relationship between the two should be as equals, should be as comrades. You know, we're equals in the world. We're both out here in the world trying to do our best. And we help each other, sure, but we don't force help on each other. We don't try to manipulate each other and things like that. You know, that manipulation sort of necessarily depends on you thinking that you're greater than someone else, right? Because you need them to change in order to fulfill your desires, therefore ranking your desires above theirs. Anyways, this might all be... So I don't want to do that. So I guess I believe in giving homeless people money. I think that's what they need, short of the services, I suppose, that would help them out of the binds that they're in. services which I often can't provide, but most of the time probably just don't want to provide. You know, the serious commitments of like having an ongoing relationship with the person and actually setting up a like a communistic, like a communal relationship with this person where their needs become your needs, and together you two are inseparably bound by your relationship. You know, that's how you treat like brothers and sisters most of the time. You know, and other family members and spouses and very close friends. You say, you know, whatever you need, I can help you. You know, whatever bind you're in, we will go through this together. And that, I suppose, ultimately, that's the good that I refuse to do most of the time, or pretend like I'm unable to do, which perhaps is true, I'm not sure, but this is all by the by. What the crux of this problem is, I think, is that the discomfort of not knowing my role around people in need leads me to fill my head with thoughts in order to escape the discomfort, justification, you know, thoughts that say it's okay that you don't do this because, you know, it's okay that you don't you know, give this person money because maybe if you gave them money they would buy drugs with it. You know, maybe if you gave them money they might, you know, be insulted. You know, maybe they're not begging, and maybe they'd be upset with you, or maybe this person's dangerous and, you know, they don't deserve your money. And again, I'm not standing by these thoughts. These are just the thoughts that say ignore this problem, ignore a fellow human being in need, don't think about them. Those are the thoughts that come up, and I get lost in those thoughts right away. And I suppose I take refuge in being lost in those thoughts. It's nicer for me to be lost in those thoughts than it is for me to cope with the feelings that I'm feeling, the feeling of duty and the feeling of, you know, sadness and the uncertainty of my role. You know, it's easy to buy a coffee because you know what your role is. It's to be polite and to hand over the money and then receive the coffee. You know, it's easy and we feel at ease there. But we don't know what our role is with homeless people, or at least I don't. And so I think this is all, that's the problem essentially. But the solution, I think, is to slow way down, is to give feelings space, give them a place where they're allowed to be. And to do that, I think I should stop dead. You know, I should see something that makes me sad, and I should stop and breathe and take a beat to sort of let sorrow in and let discomfort and uncertainty in. And once those feelings are there, you can feel them come up and you can feel them go away. You can feel racing thoughts show up, you know, and like sort of those fireworks, those spirally fireworks sort of fizz and peter out because you're watching them. They can't form a big chain, so they fizz and they peter out, and you can watch that happen. All the while you can just stand in front of the situation that has made you uncomfortable and therefore make yourself more comfortable with it. A part of the discomfort is that I run away from this all the time. If you're a homelessness outreach person, how long would it take before you're comfortable walking up to someone and asking what they need? You know, a day on the job? It's the same with, you know, knife skills when you're chefing. You know, every amateur cook has, well, you know, lots of amateur cooks have really poor knife skills, myself included, because, you know, how often do they chop an onion? Well, they chop, you know, 2 onions a day maybe, or 1 onion a day, or 5 a week or less. And so you can't get that much practice in. But when you're a chef, you have to chop, you know, you might have to chop 50 onions in a row. And so then you can really get the technique down. And you might have to do 50 in a row every day, or 50 in a row every week. And so every week you get a chance to adjust technique and make yourself more comfortable, make yourself more familiar. And so by creating space for emotions and being in a situation for longer, you become more comfortable. You reach into the present moment as it actually is, instead of as your thoughts want it to be. My thoughts want it to be that I have no relationship to this person. My thoughts want it to be that I'm not obligated to help. My thoughts want to divorce me from the more immediate reality, which is that when I see someone else suffering, I want to alleviate that. And I think everyone's got that. I think everyone, when they're in touch with presence, they can't stand to see another person suffering. And so to create presence in the midst of suffering is to be more in touch with reality, is to be more in touch with our feelings, and is to hopefully create this space required to stop making all these assumptions about what's going on with this person, and instead step into a dialogue with the person. I can imagine myself, and this is just an imagining, maybe I'll report back on how this goes, just standing near a person who's in need and feeling all these feelings go by, and then just saying hello to someone and just asking how they are, and maybe even saying, I want to be honest with you, it makes me sad to see you like this, and it makes me want to ignore you, but I don't want to ignore you, because that's how I feel, And I'm not saying that it's going to change the world, or that it's going to change me or change a person's, situation or their life or whatever. I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't done this very much or at all. But I think that creating that presence and trying to be in touch with what's really going on, and opening up dialogue with a person, even if you don't, give a lot of money, or even if you don't, follow on with, all this other stuff that you're supposed to do, get on the phone and call an outreach program and help them get ID so they can get into a homeless shelter, or whatever the sort of, it's about getting away from these ideas, this train of ideas that leads you to this, oh, well, I just can't act, or it's all too complicated. Just quickly before I finish, one of the problems is that, Peter Singer, the Australian ethicist, I think he's from Melbourne, or he studied in Melbourne or something like that. But anyways, Peter Singer talks about the drowning child argument in terms of altruism, and the argument goes a little something like this. I'm just going to do a really quick version. If you saw a drowning child, you would be obligated to run in and save them, even if it meant that you missed your flight, or you ruined your new pair of shoes, you incurred some kind of a cost, $100 or something. You wouldn't say, oh, but, the $100 though, I really need it, and not save the child. You would save a person's life for an inconvenience. And you would even do so if someone else was walking by and they didn't do it. And you would also do so if there were two drowning children and two people walking by, yourself included. You saved one, the other person didn't save the other one. You wouldn't go, well, I've done my fair share. I've done one. He or she's supposed to do one, so I'm not going to do it. You would still do it. So there are a couple different variations of the argument, and they're designed to present us with the conundrum that is, if you can help someone out and not take a bigger sacrifice in doing so than they are gifted, then we should do that, But this argument runs out of control, because it goes, well, so when does it end? So I see a homeless person, I give him, what, $500? Because if I had $500 less dollars, I wouldn't be broke, I wouldn't be homeless. So I should probably give him $500, maybe $1,000. And then what? I walk a block and I see another one, and I have to do it again. Is that what I'm supposed to do? And although the argument really opened my eyes as to the extent of the potential extent of my moral obligations, it also goes too far in that it's this endless train of thought that actually is so, I guess, frightening. It's frightening, the idea that I would have to give away all my money to everyone that I meet who might need it more than me until I have no more money left, that it shuts down the whole idea in my mind. Again, the thoughts rip me away from reality, away from compassion, which is the reality when we see people in need, is I wish they weren't suffering. It rips me away from that. And instead, the thoughts throw me into this conceptual realm where, oh, if I helped him out, then I would have to help them all out. Or, I can't help him out because all these thoughts which tear us away. Presence and mindful awareness of my feelings, that's the goal here. And it even just feels good to talk about and to say those words and to be aware of my intention to do all of these things. And so hopefully they'll bear fruit. This kind of slowing down and stuff will bear fruit in my life and other people's lives as well. That's Kind Regards, episode 4. I don't know, altruism, homelessness. Yeah, that's Kind Regards, episode 4. I hope you enjoyed.